Crafty. Very crafty. Hello, my fam. It is Perez, the queen of all media, the original influencer, and your number one source for everything It Ends With Us saga. Team Blake Hurd has been very busy the last few weeks working on a plan behind the scenes that just debuted. What a shero. This victim is such an advocate for women. In a symbolic but meaningful move, multiple organizations today just filed leave to submit an amicus on behalf of Justin Baldoni's self-proclaimed victim. We've already had some women's rights groups interject in the proceedings in support of Blake Lives Matters. Organizations that we've discovered all are somehow linked to the shampoo company owner. From donations of money to donations of legal services to her attorneys being on the board, smells like a rotten paper trail. 14 organizations today filed this joint request to basically be an expert witness in this phase of the trial. Sanctuary for Families, the National Organization for Women, the National Organization for Women NYC, Women's Justice Now, the New York Cyber Abuse Task Force, Her Nuversity Inc., Women's Equal Justice, the New York City Alliance Against Sexual Assault, the Coalition Against Trafficking in Women, the National Network to End Domestic Violence, Esperanza United, the New York State Anti-Trafficking Coalition, Her Justice, and the Urban Resource Institute are all standing in solidarity with her and against him. Him who actually, prior to all this drama, was working with women's rights groups, was working on behalf of and for victims. And her who purposefully shied away from all of that, instead focusing on florals and hair care and booze, until now, when it's convenient for her. Their proposed brief boldly begins by declaring, quote, the retaliatory defamation lawsuit instigated by the Wayfarer parties against Blake Lively is another example of DARVO tactics: deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. In the post-Me Too era, where perpetrators of sexual violence, in particular sexual harassment, attempt to silence their victims into submission. Perpetrators use defamation suits to deny their own liability, discredit survivors of sexual violence, and reverse the narrative to cast themselves as the real victims. All 14 of these groups said this full chest. The way they are painting her out to be and him is just contrary to reality. Have these groups read everything like I have? Have they seen all the receipts, proof, timeline that Justin Baldoni has brought forth? I think not. It wouldn't surprise me if there was some financial contribution for this joint brief as well. These advocate groups say that they want to submit their brief in support of Blake Lively because her motion to dismiss the Wayfarer party's case on grounds that her statements about the sexual harassment she experienced in her workplace on and around the set of filming It Ends With Us in legal filings to the press and to third parties fall within California's recently enacted sexual harassment privilege under Section 47.1, blah, 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 blah. The law should protect survivors' rights to speak their truth, not silence them. You know what's hilarious too? It's clear that all of these briefs being submitted by these groups on her behalf are orchestrated with Team Delulu. And remember how Pinocchio's squad repeatedly keeps saying that Team Baldoni Wayfarer is using the court and motions and the docket to sway public opinion and get headlines? That's exactly what Blondie and her supporters are now doing as well. This latest group of 14 could have easily joined the already multi-advocacy group filing that we saw recently. But no, they wanted this as a standalone moment for press. Blake has our full support. What's happening to her is awful. They then go on to talk about DARVO tactics and slap lawsuits and retaliation and blah, 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 blah. This statement, though, is perhaps one of the most relevant in their proposed brief. Quote, Miss Lively's statements about her workplace experience of sexual harassment and the New York Times reporting of the same are precisely the kind of statements that the California and New York statutes protect as privileged. They also talked about anti-SLAPP legislation in New York State, meaning laws designed to protect real victims of sexual harassment and abuse. Real victims. And it wouldn't surprise me if lawyers for the New York Times are also in cahoots and working together on this. Because remember, they too are trying to get out of this consolidated lawsuit mess. The brief says, indeed, California's amendments were motivated by statements made to the press about a prominent figure, which is symmetrical to Miss Lively's statements that were communications about her experience of workplace harassment that were then published by the New York Times. They boldly claim the statutory protections Miss Lively has invoked under California law, which are similarly enshrined in New York law, protect her from precisely the kind of meritless claims that Wayfarer parties have asserted in this case. No, wrong. The claims brought about by Justin Baldoni are very meritorious. Is that a word, meritorious? Meritful? The Wayfarer party's attempt to undermine those statutory protections are meritless and would further serve to chill victims from reporting their harassment, knowing they could be subject to civil liability. Yeah, people should be held accountable for spreading lies, making false allegations, for a retaliatory campaign, a true one. And then they plead a ruling dismissing the Wayfarer party's lawsuit would further advance the legislative intent behind recent enactments. Judge, if you want to be pro-women and pro-victim, you have to do this. The law should encourage reporting, not dissuade it. In conclusion, the pervasive chilling effects from the use of DARVO tactics in the workplace and in litigation would be exacerbated by allowing the Wayfarer party's meritless defamation claim to proceed past the motion to dismiss stage in this high-profile litigation. Amici respectfully urge the court to grant Miss Lively's motion to dismiss. Perez Hilton is going to call it. No. Thus far, Judge Lyman, I think, has been very sensible, and he will rule no. Thank you. But hey, I can appreciate some hustle. Good work. Good work behind the scenes, making this happen. It's not going to ultimately work the way you want it to, but hey, the lawyers keep getting richer. All right, my fam, thoughts? Let's discuss everything in the comments section.